Hey everybody, John Ramdeen, Robin Black here. This is the Championship Rounds podcast. We talk about everything that is cool in the world of mixed martial arts. A very, very, very busy month for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. They are in Buffalo on April 8th. Then they have a show April 15th, and then a show April 23rd. I think Cub Swanson, Artem Lobov.
April 7th, we got TKO live on Fight Pass.
And let's talk about that first before we talk about the Ultimate Fighting Championship. A couple of cool prospects that the TKO organization they're building. Adam Ditska, the big heavyweight. TJ Laramie from Windsor, Ontario. Of course, his brother Tony Laramie, in my opinion, one of the coolest fights on the card, taking on Manchild. But also Charles Jourdain and his brother Louis Jourdain. All tremendous talent. Why should fans be looking at this crop of prospects?
Hey, if you're watching two guys sitting in front of a bunch of whatever this is.
This is my jam right here.
This is good. Here, talking about fights on a YouTube channel, you love fighting. And if you love fighting, you're watching TKO for a couple of reasons. Fight Pass, Fight Network Live. You're watching it. Well, me and John are there. It's going to be fun hanging out with you. I miss you, man. I miss hanging out. We only see each other twice a week now. And you watch it for action because these are action fights. They're action fights always. But you're also watching it to see the future. And these guys are the future. And Charles Jourdain has looked fantastic, very playful and very fun to watch.
Almost too calm.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? That it really feels like when he is in there that he doesn't feel the stress of somebody smashing him in the face with their shin. Like that doesn't seem to be a thing for him.
I think for him and other guys like this who perform this way, his body feels the physiological stress, but he chooses to be able to execute in addition to it. That's why these young fighters that we're seeing at this level, that's why we in TKO is our favorite fight show to call. It's because at this level, these young guys are blowing your minds. You know, they're Tony Hawk, or you take Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky. They look at the people in their thing that are 16 years old now, and they're like, oh,
thank God I wasn't playing during that time.
Look at these kids. And that's what fighting is, the same thing. You're seeing the top level fighters evolve, but with that, they're bringing up 0-0 guys. Adam Ditska has knocked out, 3 heavyweight dudes in the first round. He goes in there, he knows he's getting hit. He draws the fire and he hits you. Confidence is there. And,
100%. That's, you feel when he's inside of the cage or ring that he has an assignment, and the assignment is, I'm going to put my opponent down. I know there's a potential for me to get hurt and to get dropped, but that's irrelevant because I'm going to accomplish my mission.
And TJ Laramie, go onto Fight Pass and look up the fights that these guys have had. These guys, and just watch TKO 36 and 37. They are fantastic shows. And you see TJ Laramie is hyper skilled, but he's also very smart. He's also very smart, and he's got a level thing. And there's a particular type of athlete, this level-headed. Nothing gets too high, nothing gets too low in fighting, in training, in life. These are the guys to watch. These are the guys to keep an eye on, that level-headed sensibility to the way that they look at their art and their job and their life. It's going to be really fun, Colin. I hope people tune in and watch us.
One of the fights we didn't get a chance to really talk about, 135 pounds, and Canada has pumped out so many great 35ers over the years. Xavier Aloy and, of course, Mike Impurato, a super cool fight. I think if you look at this fight on paper, two submission guys. Maybe they're just going to roll around on the ground and they're going to try to take the other guy out by their chosen means. Why is this fight more than just that?
It's a cool fight for sure. Impurato has lost twice. Now his wins are mind-blowing, but the last loss is mind-blowing too, because he was getting beat by somebody that he didn't have the answer for, and he never quit. Never, no matter what he was faced with.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was in him. Like I've known Mike for a number of years, not intimately, just in passing. He seems like a great guy to me, and I just didn't know if that was a possibility. And to see what somebody's capable of, it's like, okay, this guy's going to go far.
And Xavier would not be broken, would not be discouraged against Josh Hill, would not take a step back, came on as the fight went on, never got discouraged. And so, yes, both of these guys are spectacularly talented fighters. But they can't break each other. They won't be discouraged. They won't be convinced not to fight the way that they want to fight. And they won't be, you get these brilliant fights when you have skill and talent and toughness and drive and all those things, and the unwillingness to be discouraged or pushed back or taken off your path. To me, that is one of the most incredible things about watching fighting, is to see what humans are capable of. And sometimes, in TKO 37, I'm sorry, I forget his name. Jesse was fighting a young man in the co-main event, and he was the same thing.
Jimmy Spicuzza.
And I said to Spicuzza after the show, I said, man, that was a beautiful fight. And he was almost upset at me. And I said, man, you don't always get to pick what you're going to show in these moments, but you showed something really, really impressive. And people who understand that, I know that it's hard to imagine what it feels like to get kicked in the head by a professional athlete, and that's good. You don't want to imagine that. But for these guys, it's something that the rest of us are not capable of. We'd like to think that we are, and maybe some nights we are, or some days we are, or if push came to shove and there's a car on a woman, we'd be the one to go in there or run into that burning building. And on some days, that is who we all are. But when you see these guys capable of that on a level that we can hardly comprehend, and you see it out of young guys. You see it in shows like TKO. You see it in these shows where their dream is on the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Once a guy is in his 11th UFC fight, you still see it. It becomes a habit from them. But when your life, the dreams of everything you had in your life to accomplish in fighting relies on the fight with this young man who feels exactly the same way, you get these special things that, I wish that some people who only watch the big shows got to see some of these shows.
I agree 100%. And not that I was a non-believer, because I know what's possible in mixed martial arts. But for TKO 36, the Xavier Aloy and Josh Hill fight, when I looked at this on paper and I'd watched Aloy's fights, it's like, this guy is in big trouble, because if you understand how good Josh Hill is, it just made no sense that this young guy was willing to face somebody the caliber of Josh Hill. And after that fight, I'm like, holy smokes, where did this guy come from? Because he'd never been challenged that way in any of his fights. And again, if you understand how good Josh Hill is, it's just even more impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And see, we had a natural reaction when you see a guy who has beat people far below his own skill level to the idea of him fighting somebody of that nature. We had a natural reaction. It's like, well, he's never even been acclimatized to this. So there is a logical, from past experience, we can look and go, in most cases, people find the real thing, get beaten, and go, oh, I see I've got a long way to go. The thing is, Xavier, he looks through his own eyes out into the world. We're looking at him, but from back in his cockpit, he's like, you guys don't know anything about me. This is what I was meant to do. And he was right. We had him winning a round against Josh Hill. Was that? Yeah. And he was very impressive. And, he's training over at TriStar. And Mike has always trained with Sam Zakula, who is a genius. Sam is a genius, particularly in the grappling game. And then Sam now works with Claude Patrick, who is a genius. I'm telling you, is a genius. So Mike, this unbreakable will kid, has two geniuses with him, and Xavier has a team of geniuses with him. And this level of fight is on TKO, and that's real. So we get excited because you should get excited. These fights are fucking off the chart.
Yeah, and all the action going down April 7th at Le Tohu in Montreal. We're going to move past TKO, but again, do yourself a favor. Either subscribe to UFC Fight Pass, Fight Network, or go to the show in Montreal. You are going to be entertained if you love the sport of mixed martial arts. As I said, a very busy month for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The following night, the UFC will be in Buffalo, New York, the light heavyweight championship of the world on the line. Daniel Cormier, Anthony Rumble Johnson, the co-featured bout, 185 pounds. A fight I cannot wait to see. Chris Weidman, Gegard Mousasi. The following week after that, Demetrius Johnson in action, looking to defend his title. Then the week after that, You're going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, is that right? Cub
Yeah.
Swanson, Artem Lobov, but you're going to be there to talk to Cub before that fight goes
Yeah,
down.
I'm going there next weekend to do some work for Monster Gym out of Korea. So watch for that. We'll put a link up on the site. So I'm going to go talk to Cub. I'm trying to get a hold of Greg Jackson too. Diego Sanchez, if you're out there, dude, I want to swing by and talk to you as well.
Aloy Quinta, he's got that fight
yes,
coming up.
exactly. Groovy Lando. Let's go have some lunch. And,
Michelle
talk to
Watterson,
you.
too.
Michelle Watterson.
She's got her fight against Rose Namajunas. So lots of
great,
cool fights.
yeah.
So when you think about that, when you look at the scope of, wow, there's lots of shit going down over the next 30 days. I know Cub's your guy.
Cub's my guy.
So what do you expect? Do you expect anything different from Cub Swanson? The guy seems to be riding high. He accepted an award, has a baby on the way, coming off that incredible fight of the year, fight of the decade candidate with him and Duho Choi. What is it about Cub Swanson that allows him to grow, that allows him to be authentic and still compete in this modern landscape, even though he's been in this game for a long time, which means you have to break old habits.
Yeah, he's never been better, right? And I think, why did I enjoy watching this particular artist? There's a handful, Jorge Masvidal. We've got 5 or 6 that there's just something about their art. I mean, there's art all over this place, and if you've been watching some stuff or you see on our YouTube channel, there's art all over this place. And we can go into different places, and you see art. Somebody likes to paint, forests and rivers, and somebody else paints dogs playing poker, right? And you like what you like. You have sensibilities of things that move you or inspire you, or some art really makes you feel weird, When Chris Weidman got hit by that flying knee from Yoel Romero, I felt sick to my stomach a little bit. But that's what fighting is. And there's something about the way, the flow and the fluidity and with the way that Cub fights, that is what takes his artistry to a level that I appreciate on another level. But he has never been better. In my opinion, it is because he is studying himself. So early on in these fighters' development, you get to learn how to punch, and then you get better at punching. You learn how to kick, and you learn how to grapple, and you learn how to choke. Then you put them all together, and so on and so forth, and you become a black belt, and you become a good. You build skills, but then later it has to go beyond that. Especially now, Gunnar Nelson, you're not going to beat him just by boxing better than him. You have to go beyond that, and to do that requires a study of yourself and an understanding of the realities of what you're facing in the fights in front of you. Cub, I'm certain, is addressing the reality that he has a lot to live up to now. Mm-hmm. That fight, and you can't pretend that's not so. That fight that he had with Duho Choi, fight of the year, performance like that, he's raising his own bar.
So people expect that level of combat and that level of entertainment every time Cub Swanson steps inside of the cage. But how does he push that away?
Well, so you're right. People expect that, but you don't have to care what people expect.
Right, but you still have to, your body reacts the way it's going to. Normally people are cheering, and then you're in the cage and they're booing you because things are not the way.
Then you have to address that. Yeah. You have to address whatever these possibilities are. The more you look at them and the more you analyze them and the more you dissect them, we can all do this. It's great when we watch artists and athletes and fighters and Beyonce and whoever we look up to do this, but we can do this. You sit over here and make notes about what you do and why you do it. And then work on that like a muscle. Work on getting better at doing that like a muscle. That's what the top fighters are doing now. They are, and Dominic Cruz has done it publicly because that's his job now. He is taught, by looking at what he does and reverse engineering it, you can get better at all of those things. Understand what you're doing, then figure out why you're doing it, and then look at what of those things can be tweaked and improved. And guys like that are transcending punching and kicking, and they're taking it somewhere different.
I want to talk about Rose Namajunas and the karate hottie, Michelle Watterson. When you think of Rose's evolution as a mixed martial arts artist, kind of a jiu-jitsu grappler, really smooth scrapper now. She knows how to put her fists on you.
Beautiful.
But with Michelle Watterson, again, you think of her as this stand-up karate girl, and then we saw she can take your back in 2 seconds. She can put you on the ground. When you think about strategies and game plans, because you mentioned it before, that the women's mixed martial arts continues to evolve, that it's maybe a little bit behind because they got a late start.
Yeah, money too.
Whatever the case may be. What is the approach of the coaches?
Yeah. So it is a little bit behind. And Ronda Rousey was, a grappler. And then she got beat by Holly Holm, who was a striker. We're going. It's Chuck Liddell and it's
Mark Coleman.
Mark Coleman. Yeah, I mean we can see that happening again, and that is true. And why is that so? Because before they just got into the UFC, how many years later? Like 15, 17, years later. Before that, without the money being made by coaches and teams and people and gyms and the fighters themselves, money influences things. That happens in society, right? In everything we do. We're a commerce-driven democracy, right? And commerce drives innovation, development, it drives everything. And so if people the best money isn't being made, the best coaching isn't being accessed. And, so there was an unfair second-class citizen kind of vibe to women's fighting. Now we're seeing an even quicker change in it because now all of a sudden it's like, actually, they do more numbers putting women fighting on Fox. There's more money coming in. There are millionaire women fighters now. Obviously, Ronda. I'm sure Holly made plenty of money.
Sure.
So all of that will really quickly change it. But we are still at where we are. And on some level, Watterson went in to fight Paige Van Zandt, and she really looked like a karate fighter kind of. Stephen Thompson doesn't. He throws hook kicks and he plays, with a particular influence from what he came from, but it's not just that. But Michelle fought with I'll throw a hook kick, I'll kick out here. It really looked that way. And it was really cool. If that is how she still likes to fight, if that is, you can carry that over. Rose is very much sort of a boxing mutated Muay Thai fighter. And when we watched her move at the open workouts, I was blown away. And they're like all the little, the little pivot points of her body all move really smooth and independently. And you're looking at that going, wow, that is an athlete. And there's, women's soccer or football, whatever we want to call it, the WNBA, all of these things, you get to a point where it's like, well, they can't run as fast or they don't kick the ball as far or whatever it is. Fighting is something different, you're starting to realize, because the way that the women can move themselves as ballet athletes or as gymnastic athletes or whatever, they can do some things better than the male counterparts in some of those other sports. So that'll be very possible in fighting too. And so it's going to be cool to see. This is about as good of an interesting, they're both pretty and people like them and they're popular and the fight is cool. So we haven't been as jazzed up by some the women's fighting over the last 6 months, but this one's got me pretty jazzed up. And West Coast Dave, our buddy, he's obsessed with Rose. So it'll be fun. We'll be in Buffalo. I'll be in Buffalo.
One of the things, though, it really feels that the women take it very personally, that they feel a responsibility that when they're on the card, that they have to put on a bigger show than some of their male counterparts.
So you want to be a fighter, as Dana White. So you want to be a fucking fighter. So you want to be a fucking fighter, and you're going to come up and you're going to take physical abuse, and you're going to, let's say you decide to be a fighter when you're 17 years old. You're going to take physical abuse. People are going to think you're crazy. It's going to cost you. You're going to get a part-time job. It's going to cost you a lot of money to invest in it. There's a chance you won't make it, et cetera, et cetera. Your family, you'll never go out and see. You'll never get to go out for beers. You won't see your family and your friends.
That sounds awful. I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
I've given up already.
Yeah, exactly.
17-year-old.
So there's a lot of reasons to not do it. There's going to be 17 more reasons if you're a woman doing it. You're going to face some type of, sexism. You're going to face bullying. More people in your family. Your mom's going to cry probably in some cases. There's way, way more reasons for women to bail before this point. So by the time they get there and you see Rose Namajunas or you see Michelle Watterson, you see anybody at this point, they had even more obstacles to overcome. All of them. Every one of them. And that makes them even a rarer breed. And that's one of the things we've always liked about women's MMA when we've got to call it on the grassroots level and stuff, is that it takes a particular type of person to make the sacrifices to fight, but it's double or triple for women.
You were watching the Championship Rounds podcast. Robin Black, John Ramdeen. Got to give a shout out to our man Mike Fife for always hooking it up. When you think of what's going on over the next month, I know Man, Demetrius Johnson in action, Cub Swanson in action, Chris Weidman in action. Is there one fight in particular or one fighter that you're like, okay, it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter who their opponent is. I just love the way they express themselves. Is it Cub Swanson? If it is, who else would it be if Cub isn't a part of that?
I'm sure it is. But then there are times where they put two of them together.
Yeah.
Like Duho Choi was one of my very favorite, and so different, very different than Cub Swanson. And when they put them together, I was just like, I was writing in my thankfulness journal and stuff, like just nerding the fuck out. And of course, I'm excited to see him fight. And Lobov is a hard fight. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. And there are a lot of people who dislike him for whatever reason associated with Conor or the reality show or whatever. And because they don't like him, they think that means he sucks. Artem Lobov is
want him to suck.
Yeah, they'd like it if he sucked, but he doesn't. He's a very dangerous fighter. And I'm talking to Cub. I'm going to be in Albuquerque next weekend. And I'm certain, I can tell you, I haven't asked him, but I'm certain he is the opposite of taking this lightly. He knows there are ways that will increase his likelihood of winning, but he is not taking this guy lightly, and neither should you. Of course, that fight is, I get all weird when he's fighting, and same with Duho Choi. I mean, I was backstage in Toronto. Me and Calvin Gastelum were watching it, and I started noticing everyone was watching me watching the fight because I must have been acting like an idiot.
It's like the way Chuck Liddell watches fights.
Yeah,
he's all moving around and he gets into it.
Yeah. I watched fights with Chuck before too. It's also Chuck has some great insight, really nuggets of insight that's really interesting. He's smart. He's a cool guy, obviously. He's fucking Chuck Liddell. Yeah. But also Weidman and Mousasi, because it's not just I'm a fan of both men. Weidman's been, if I had an all Robin Black team, I put Chris Weidman on it for sure. Yeah. But Mousasi's also one of our favorites. So it's not just, cool Cubs fighting or cool DJs fighting. In this fight, you've got two geniuses, two mind-blowing modern creatures of combat, and that one is pretty awesome.
That will do it for us. A whole whackload of fights coming up in April. Next week, we're going to get back together. We're going to talk about some of the other fights. We didn't get a chance to talk about the heavyweight championship of the world that's coming down the pipe, and the return of BJ Penn. Right. So many cool things to talk about, including our stint in Montreal.
TKO 38.
38, the main event, Jesse Ronson taking on Derek Gauthier. That will do it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in to the championship rounds. He's Robin Black. I'm John Ramdeen. Mark's there behind the camera, running it, making it all happen. We got to thank you guys for tuning in, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. Next week, we'll bring you more insight in the world of mixed martial arts.